Good evening, everybody. This is Immortal Man UK, Jamie here, and I'm doing part 3 of my series. There'll be many parts of this series. There's a lot to go through. So if you're interested, great. Hope you enjoy it. And if you're following and you want to be notified of each time that a part is made, then just go ahead and subscribe to my channel. So the series is the God of the Bible. Okay, so I've done part 1 and part 2. Part 1 was about the killings that God personally carried out in the Bible. Part 2 was of the human sacrifice, and now I'm doing part 3. And part 3 of my series, The God of the Bible, I've entitled Women May Find This Disturbing. I've entitled it that, not just for the shock factor, but because genuinely I want women to be aware prior to watching this that they may find it disturbing. And does that give me joy and happiness? It doesn't. And but what is my objective to this series? Well, I just want to go over that just before we go into it, just in case you're wondering. Okay, so the purpose of my series is to expose religion and the ETs that created it, but it's not all doom and gloom. What I'd like to do is do that because, for thousands of years, the entire of humanity, I think it's like 75% of humanity is religious, and most of them are of the Abrahamic religions, the Bible religions, and so I want to expose that. We've all got a Bible on our bookshelves. The Bible is one of the best-selling books in the world. We've all got one, and yet somehow we've not come across, or we have come across, but we've just not looked at it properly and got the true true meaning of it, really. The truth hurts, and I just want you to look at this with a fresh pair of eyes. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to ultimately, if you bear with me through the series, I'm going to explain a better way. Okay, and ultimately you'll be inspired, empowered, and you'll be free. Okay, now then, so part 3. Okay. Right, it's going to be about how women used to be used and abused by God's people, and many times with God's consent and assistance. Okay, we're going to look at some scriptures, and I'm going to link you to the scriptural references so you can do your own due diligence and check it out for yourself. Okay. Okay, so it's an interesting thought here. We don't let our children watch sex and violence on TV, but we encourage them to study the Bible. Okay. So if you really knew the contents of the Bible, okay, it just seems odd to me that we would allow our children to study the Bible and yet we wouldn't allow them to watch the Bible stories if they were made into film. Okay, and I'm not talking about the nice ones, I'm talking about a lot of the not so nice ones. We wouldn't let them watch that on TV. Also, as well, what baffles me is women go to church and worship the God of the Bible, who obviously didn't regard women very nicely. Okay, now that'll become clear as we go into it. So let's just jump straight into it then. Let's have a look at some scriptures here. Okay, first of all, we're going to look at kidnapping. Okay, so I'm going to read. Okay, so on the subject of kidnapping, what we're going to do here as well is I'm going to show you the true. We've all come across in the Bible where it refers to taking a wife. Okay, it's often said, that a man shall take a wife, and taking a wife, and I think you're going to see this in a new light. This is not voluntary. Okay, so let's have a look now at Judges chapter 21 and verse 10 to 24. And I encourage you, if you have a Bible and you dare, okay, I want you to turn to this and go through it with me. Or if not, then at least, after the video, at a more convenient time. Okay, so let's have a read of this scripture. So they sent 12,000 warriors to Jabesh Gilead, with orders to kill everyone there, including women and children. "This is what you are to do," they said. "Completely destroy all the males and every woman who is not a virgin." Among the residents of Jabesh Gilead, they found 400 young virgins who had never slept with a man, and they brought them to the camp at Shilah. I apologize for my pronunciations where I'm getting it wrong. In the land of Canaan. The Israelite assembly sent a peace delegation to the little remnant of Benjamin who were living at the rock of Rimmon. Then the men of Benjamin returned to their homes, and the 400 women of Jabesh Gilead who were spared were given to them as wives. But there were not enough women for all of them. The people felt sorry for Benjamin because the Lord had left this gap in the tribes of Israel. So the Israelite leaders asked, "How can we find wives for the few who remain, since all the women of the tribe of Benjamin are dead? There must be heirs for the survivors so that the entire tribe of Israel will not be lost forever. But we cannot give them our own daughters in marriage because we have sworn with a solemn oath that anyone who does this will fall under God's curse." Then they thought of the annual festival of the Lord held in Shiloh between Lebonah and Bethel, along the east side of the road that goes from Bethel to Shechem. They told the men of Benjamin, who still needed wives, "Go and hide in the vineyards. When the women of Shiloh come out of their dances, rush out from the vineyards, and each of you can take one of them home to be your wife. And when their fathers and brothers come to us in protest, we will tell them, 'Please be understanding. Let them have your daughters.' For we didn't find enough wives for them when we destroyed Jabesh Gilead. And you are not guilty of breaking the vow, since you did not give your daughters in marriage to them." So the men of Benjamin did as they were told. They kidnapped the women who took part in the celebration and carried them off to the land of their own inheritance. Then they rebuilt their towns and lived in them. So the assembly of Israel departed by tribes and families and returned to their homes. Okay, and that's it. So again, that was Judges chapter 21, verses 10 to 24. Okay, so were these women consenting to marriage? They were kidnapped. It clearly says that. They were kidnapped, and it was told to them that that's exactly what they can do. So read it yourself, come to your own conclusion as to whether you think this is acceptable and right. Okay. So now I want to talk about young virgin girls. And we're going to look at Numbers chapter 31, verses 7 through to 18. Okay, so let's have a read of that. They attacked Midian just as the Lord had commanded Moses, and they killed all the men, all 5 of the Midianite kings, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, if I'm pronouncing it right, died in the battle. They also killed Balaam, son of Beer, with the sword. Then the Israelite army captured the Midianite women and children and seized their cattle and flocks and all their wealth as plunder. They burned all the towns and villages where the Midianites had lived. After they had gathered the plunder and captives, both people and animals, they brought them all to Moses and Eleazar, the priest, and the whole community of Israel, which was camped on the plains of Moab beside the Jordan River across from Jericho. Moses, Eleazar the priest, and all the leaders of the people went to meet them outside the camp. But Moses was furious with all the military commanders who had returned from the battle. "Why have you let all the women live?" he demanded. "These are the very ones who followed Balaam's advice and caused the people of Israel to rebel against the Lord at Mount Peor, something like that. Peor. Okay, I continue. They are the ones who caused the plague to strike the Lord's people. Now kill all the boys and all the women who have slept with a man. Only the young girls who are virgins may live. You may keep them for yourselves." Okay? Right. So, now we're going to look at murder, kidnap, and slavery. And I'm going to read Deuteronomy chapter 20, verses 10 to 14. "As you approach a town to attack it, first offer its people terms for peace. If they accept your terms and open the gates to you, then all the people inside will serve you in forced labor." Well, that's nice. "But if they refuse to make peace and prepare to fight, you must attack the town. When the Lord your God hands it over to you, kill every man in the town. But you may keep for yourselves all the women, children, livestock, and other plunder. You may enjoy the spoils of your enemies that the Lord your God has given you." Okay. So now we're going to look at rape victims must marry the attacker. Right? And this is Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 28 to 29. "If a man is caught in the act of raping a young woman who is not engaged, he must pay 50 pieces of silver to her father. Then he must marry the young woman because he violated her, and he will never be allowed to divorce her." Okay. I just really want you to think about that. And if you're a woman listening to this video, I want you to think about it's all very well that a man has done wrong to you and must marry you as a result, the consequences. But I mean, how would you feel about marrying your rapist? I don't think he'd like to do that. And, as for a father accepting 50 pieces of silver, do you think a father would maybe be interested in 50 pieces of silver in exchange for, as compensation, and then his daughter's going to marry a rapist? Doesn't really work in modern times, does it? Are people, really very different? Is Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever? Is the Old Testament relevant in any way? Because, we quote the Old Testament. Are we just missing these? Are we detouring around these shocking, sick, horrible stories and horrible laws, just ignoring them? Okay. Now, I want to read about David's punishment. Okay, and we're going to read 2 Samuel chapter 12, verses 11 to 14. Okay, actually, no. We're going to do that in a second. I've just lost my way in my notes here. Death of a rape victim. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 23 to 24. Okay, "If within the city a man comes upon a maiden who is betrothed and has relations with her, you shall bring them both out of the gate of the city and stone them to death. The girl, because she did not cry out for help, though she was in the city, and the man because he violated his neighbor's wife." Okay? So, it seems clear that God isn't really caring about the rape victim. He's only concerned with the violation of another man's property, another man's wife. because it belonged to another man. Okay. Right. So now, yes. Sorry, we're going to go on to David's punishment here. Okay. So 2 Samuel chapter 12 verses 11 to 14. Thus says the Lord, which is important because we know that this is God speaking now. Okay. I will bring evil upon you out of your own house. I will take your wives while you live to see it, and I will give them to your neighbor. He shall lie with your wives in broad daylight. You have done this deed in secret, and I will bring it about in the presence of all Israel, and with the sun looking down. That's sun, S-U-N. Okay. Then David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. Nathan answered David, the Lord on his part has forgiven your sin. You shall not die. But since you have utterly spurned the Lord by this deed, the child born to you must surely die. And the child died 7 days later. Okay, so this kind of ties in with a previous video in part 1 when we were talking about deaths, killings, and many times innocent children had died as a punishment to the parents. Okay, so now I want to refer you to Deuteronomy chapter 21 verse 10 to 14, female captives. Okay, so let's read that. When you go out to war against your enemies, and the Lord your God delivers them into your hand, so that you take captives, if you see a comely woman among the captives, and become so enamored of her that you wish to have her as your wife, you may take her home to your house. But before she may live there, she must shave her head and pare her nails, and lay aside her captive's garb. After she has mourned her father and mother for a full month, you may have relations with her, and you shall be her husband, and she shall be your wife. However, if later on you lose your liking for her, you shall give her her freedom if she wishes it. But you shall not sell her or enslave her, since she was married to you under compulsion. Okay, so I'm sure that this woman is going to be completely consenting into marrying the very man that killed her mother and father and ruined her city and killed everyone, all her friends and family. Yeah, she's going to be very happy to marry this man, I'm sure. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the spoils of war, and I'm going to refer you to Judges chapter 5 and verse 30. They must be dividing the spoils they took. There must be a damsel or two for each man. Spoils of dyed cloth, and Sisera's spoil, an ornate shawl or two for me in the spoil. So every man can have a couple of women when they invade. Okay. And now we're going to talk about slavery. And we're going to talk more about slavery in another part, another video I'm going to do. That's a big subject on its own. Okay. But anyway, I'm just going to touch on it here. So we're going to read Exodus chapter 21, verses 7 to 11. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be freed at the end of the 6 years as the men are. If she does not please the man who bought her, he may allow her to be bought back again. But he is not allowed to sell her to foreigners, since he was the one who broke the contract with her. And if the slave girl's owner arranges for her to marry his son, he may no longer treat her as a slave girl. He must treat her as his own daughter. If he himself marries her and then takes another wife, he may not reduce her food or clothing or fail to sleep with her as his wife. If he fails in any of these 3 ways, she may leave as a free woman without making any payment. Okay, and finally, This is the final one. I want to show you a scripture where God assists rape and plunder. And we're going to be reading Zechariah chapter 14 verses 1 to 2. Lo, a day shall come for the Lord, when the spoils shall be divided in your midst. And I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem for battle. The city shall be taken, houses plundered. Now listen to this. Women ravished. Half of the city shall go into exile, but the rest of the people shall be removed from the city. Okay, so if you haven't been jotting down the scriptures and you're interested in just checking them out for yourself, then just go ahead into the description of the video and you'll be linked to a place where you can get these scriptures and a whole lot more as well, if you'd like to really delve into this kind of stuff. Okay, and thank you for listening, and there shall be part 4 following in a matter of a few days, if not sooner. Thank you.